What is something that your profession allows you to do that would otherwise be illegal? I arrange for people to take power tools, knives and ropes into prisons. I worked in construction in a prison. 2 hours to check in, work 4 hours, 2 hours to check out. Heaven forbid you forget an essential tool outside of the 17 locked doors and gates. Why does it take so long to check in out? Our sister company at my old job did prison work. One day in the yard, a gigantic guy walked over, picked up a 24-inch pipe wrench, and made a beeline for another guy. Luckily, a guard intervened. Construction tools can be used as weapons. Damn, I just remembered how much I don't want to be a prison guard. Hey, I'm a prison guard. It's really not that bad of a job. You have your bad days, but it's mostly just hanging out with mates. Prison mates? Disposal of dead bodies. Boil M? Mash M? Stick M in a stew? The grave robbing and general looting. Edit, for people asking how long has to pass for grave robbing to be considered archaeology, the short answer is, it depends. You can't put an arbitrary number on that. What culture is the grave from? Are there living descendants? What is the justification for excavation? Fellow archaeologist. You hope. Rub oil on naked people for money. Architect. Okay. Yeah, that. Wait. I can freely look up clients' social security numbers, sometimes their bank accounts, and just about all of their most personal information. Yep, I stole over 200 identities this past tax season. I even told the IRS I was doing it. Put it on a big form and everything. The best part is, my victims paid me to do it. Guessing you do taxes for people? Carry a gun on an airplane. Now that's a job that I think would be interesting to hear about. There's a Liam Neeson movie about him being an air marshal. I doubt they see as much action Earl though. Their shooting qualifications are apparently pretty hard. I knew 2 of them through my sportsman club and they were some of the best shooters I'd ever seen. They despised when their qualifications were coming up and admitted to struggling through it sometimes. One of my brothers-in-law is a recently retired FAM. He's a hell of a shot, and used to qualify right-handed and left-handed. Just because he wanted to. They'd burn a ton of ammo in their training practice sessions, too. All of it fairly expensive Spear Gold.jhp. They'd burn a ton of ammo in their training practice sessions, too. All of it fairly expensive Spear Gold.jhp. That stuff is about $1 per round, compared to most standard jacketed ball practice ammo that's 16 cents per round. If they're practicing exclusively with their duty ammo, they are not playing around. 30,000 feet in the air with a passenger not obeying your commands attempting to enter the cockpit is exactly the situation where you are not playing around. I get to use all the for official use only center median U-turns on the highway. I had a friend get pulled over for doing this. And the cop came up and said to him, "These are for official use only." His response was, "Yeah, I was officially using it." It went well. Once when I was in the Navy as an E3, I got a terrible haircut at the ship's barber shop. It was so jacked up you wouldn't believe it. Anyway, you write in the log how your haircut was, so I wrote "suck dog nuts." By the time I got to my shop, my first class was already standing out in the passageway waiting for me. I didn't even say anything, just turned around and went back to the barber shop. Their first class came out and started yelling at me, and at one point he said that the log book was an official log book. I replied that this was my official haircut that I had to officially walk around with the next couple of weeks. It went well. Go into people's gardens in the middle of the night. Wait, WTF job is this, an opposum? I deliver newspapers. I start at 4 a.m. Smile. Wow, that's early. How late do you go to bed? Cut off your clothes, see you naked, and electrocute you with 2 jkg of electricity, all while I have my hands all over your chest. Also drive far above the speed limit, force cars to veer for you, possess and inject opioids, and put unconscious people into a van and drive them off to a building where many people die and people are regularly cut open. Uncle Jerry? He didn't say, ... in the basement. Break into houses and steal cars. What's your job? Auto and domestic locksmith, aka burglar with a business card. If I wanted to get into lock picking as a hobby, where would I start? Buy a beginner set. A quality beginner set. And maybe some padlocks. Don't buy a 24-piece made in China set. Half the wacky designs aren't realistic and usually all but one won't be useful for actually learning anything beyond jiggle this around and a shitty lock might open. Look for a US company selling a 4-pick 4-tension wrench set for $20, $25 and you'll probably have a dependable and well-rounded set. Sparrow's lock picks have been my favorite, but I've only scratched the surface beyond the lessons I've already described. Chop up various human organs. Sometimes I take a little piece home with me. Pathologist. Stick my fingers up people's vaginas and bums. Not a pervert, just a nurse. Why not both? Nursivert? Purse? I think the term is perverse. It's perfect. I get to walk into my workplace with an axe and nobody blinks an eye. It would be very strange to not be carrying an axe, to be honest. Imagine if you carried in a feather duster and the building went into lockdown and the surrounding streets were cordoned off. That's how my staff act around a feather duster if I ask them to use it. I get paid by the US government to look at child pornography. Mostly sitting in office buildings for Secret Service, FBI, Homeland Security, and, rarely, local police departments. This is because the government has to pay for a defense attorney if a defendant can't afford an attorney, and the attorney has the right to hire a computer forensic expert, and check the evidence in person. In 20 years, I've seen only one case where the prosecuting attorney got the defendant mixed up with another defendant and I had to say, guys, this defendant does not have any of this evidence at all on his computer, and they quickly found the mistake. Other than that, the government mostly gets it right, but there have been a few cases where although the evidence existed the government got search warrants that were not exactly legal. Most of the work is not designed to show that the defendant is innocent but rather to quantify how guilty he is, and or find evidence that sort of explains the story, and or if they represent a threat to others. In other words, it's used at sentencing but not at trial. No one wants to present this evidence in front of a jury. I get paid by the US government to look at child pornography. The negatives of most jobs we can class as too boring, too much hard work, too dangerous, too long hours. But yours is just way too disturbing. I have access to pretty much every explosive known to mankind. Also, I can legally cook meth. As long as I do the paperwork for it. Edit, I should clarify, chemical explosives. Thought nuclear weapons aren't as hard to acquire as you might think. io9.gizmodo.com. Edit 2. I've gotten a lot of two very different yet similar responses. Lots of people asking what job? And lots of people saying, a fellow chemist. Yes, I'm a research chemist. Edit 3. The meth cooking is to train local Leo in spotting meth labs. Dea occasionally runs clinics, I've participated in one. I have access to pretty much every explosive known to mankind. Hexanitrohexaisovurtcitane? Edit, I love that so many people immediately recognize it from Derek Lowe's Things I Won't Work With. I clicked that link thinking it'd be more informative. Edit, the fact that this Redditor posted this link believing people would look at all the ends and go hot damn. Alongside the fact that biochemists actually looked at the link and said hot damn. Really restores my faith in humanity. Here's a nice one. It's an old set of blogs but the author is pretty good at explaining what makes alarmingly volatile chemicals scary in layman's terms. Some snippets: Teresa recent report of a method to make a more stable form of it, by mixing it with TNT. Yes, this is an example of something that becomes less explosive as a 101 co-crystal with TNT. Although, as the authors point out, if you heat those crystals up the two components separate out, and you're left with crystals of pure Cl20 soaking in liquid TNT, a situation that will heighten your awareness of the fleeting nature of life. Also, hexanitro? Say what? It'd call for all the chemists who've ever worked with a hexanitro compound to raise their hands, but that might be assuming too much about the limb to chemist ratio. Nitro groups, as even people who've never taken a chemistry class know, can lead to Fury booms, and putting 6 of them on one molecule can only lead to such. And since there are 6 nitrogens and 6 nitro groups, The first assumption must be that these are all bonded to each other. I mean, come on, leaving the nitro groups attached to the carbons is for wimps. So that means that someone, somewhere, has perversely made a poly-N-nitro cage compound, as if they'd been dared to cram the most bond energy into the smallest space. Lim to chemist ratio might be my new favorite measurement.